Everybody had high expectations for us. A lot of stuff happened throughout the season, but I'm proud of how we just kept fighting and kept, keeping the faith. You could take that away from the season.
This is added motivation for our franchise to be at the top of the league for the next few years.
The 2021-22 Brooklyn Nets, led by Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Steve Nash, officially formed September 3rd, 2020, after Steve Nash was signed on as coach. The Brooklyn Nets have just been swept in the 2022 NBA playoffs in the first round. After having to win a play-in game just to become the 7th seed in the East, the Nets went up against the hottest team in the NBA since the All-Star break in the Boston Celtics, who led the league in wins, going 17-5 and second in defensive rating at 106.9, with one of the hottest players in the league since that time in Jayson Tatum, who averaged 32 points a game, 7 rebounds, and nearly 5 assists. There's so much to unpack from this series alone and what it means for players in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, but also what the addition of Ben Simmons has meant and going forward what will become of a guy that I'll just say has to be the biggest prima donna the game has ever seen. But in this video, I want to focus on 3 reasons the Brooklyn Nets have not amounted to what they were supposed to for a second straight season, and also how I think each of those reasons impact this supposed super team going forward. As you may know, I'm not a fan of forming super teams. Now you can say super teams has always been a part of the league, and you might be right. The NBA has always had guys who were considered stars or superstars on one team, and as recent as the dominance of the Golden State Warriors this generation. But that doesn't mean it was ever a good thing for the league or its players. And it doesn't mean we as fans have to respect it when competition is cheated in that way, as players take shortcuts to the finish line but expect all the glory when they get there. With that said, I had no problem with how the Brooklyn Nets' supposed super team was formed. In this climate, I wasn't mad at all, seeing as almost every contending team has at least 2 superstars, so to compete, it's only right you follow suit. So when Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving decided to join forces and create their own super duo, I was all for it. And with Kyrie being left off the 75th anniversary team, how super can you even call this pairing anyway? Either way, the expectations were championship or bust for the last 2 seasons for this team, and for whatever reason, they have failed miserably both years, only winning 1 playoff series in those 2 seasons. With them being swept this year in a head-to-head with another duo no one ever considers super in Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, this has to be the biggest letdown in the history of super teams and maybe the NBA period. For Kevin Durant, who many hold as one of the best, if not the best player in the world, to have been swept and not only but be bullied like he was, the disappointment has to swell. For Kyrie Irving to have been called the best ball handler and finisher the game has seen, this can't be reality. But it is, and here's why things all went wrong for the 21-22 Brooklyn Nets. Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it! Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Kevin Durant, along with his superstar running mate Russell Westbrook, allowed the 73-win 2016 Golden State Warriors to come back from down 3-1 to beat them in Game 7, and thereafter Kevin joined that same team the very next season and won back-to-back championships that would have been 3 straight if not for injury. He left Golden State with 2 championships and 2 finals MVPs to form his own superstar duo with Kyrie Irving to prove he could build from scratch as the best player and win. He and Kyrie signed on the same day with the Nets July 7, 2019, and added coach Steve Nash in 2020 to complete their winning formula of 2 superstars and a Hall of Fame player turned coach that wasn't even really a coach according to Durant and Irving. It's been 2 years since then, and this combination has failed miserably. Stunt number 1, the wrong personnel. I think we first have to start by blaming the personnel included in this team that for whatever reason, good or indifferent, were not a good fit and may not be going forward. Starting with KD and Kyrie Irving. Although the two are the bestest of friends off the court and gel pretty well on the court, I don't think their personalities are made to be leaders, especially with everything at stake for them to win a championship. Neither has won a championship as the leader of their team or best player where the team was built around them as number one. Not the 73-win Warriors or the 67-win team KD made them in 2017 to win his first and 58-win team in 2018 to win his second. Not those, because those situations presented KD with the easiest challenge of his life to have Steph and Klay on the other side of him, taking double teams away. I saw a stat that says in the 2018 NBA Finals, KD was doubled only twice compared to Steph Curry's 40 times. Now, as the leader of the Nets, we saw how the Celtics not only successfully doubled KD, but bullied him like a suburban kid's first day at school in Compton, forcing him to spoon-feed them dunks and fast-break layups all series. In the 4-game sweep, KD turned the ball over 6, 5, and 4 times. He looked like he never dribbled in his life, and against guys like Grant Williams and Daniel Tice. Not the right leader as far as personnel without another attention grabber like Curry next to him. Which leads me to Kyrie. Irving has been one of the worst sidekicks of all time for KD in their 2 seasons on the floor together. Some his fault and some not, but reality is his absence still affected the team. Mainly referring to him not being available because of an ankle injury, not his fault. Last season he suffered Game 1 against the Bucks when they should have beat that team easily, and him refusing to get vaccinated this year, which put them in the hole they were in the first place, and arguably maybe the reason James Harden left. Then there's Nick Claxton, who went 4 for 22 from the free throw line in the series and killed the Nets single-handedly in Game 4 by itself. Steve Nash, who continuously ran ISO ball all series and didn't play Griffin, Aldridge, or even Drummond much, making it easy for the Celtics to drive to the rim as they please, with virtually no real bigs in the paint. No Joe Harris, who also collapsed in the 2021 playoffs and went 16 for 49 from 3 against the Bucks last year and provided no help. He played 0 games this season and sat out its entirety with an ankle injury. From leadership on down, I could go on all day, but in reality, this team wasn't put together correctly, and I don't see them winning with this style of ISO play with KD and Kyrie, also without the appropriate role players, especially in the paint, supporting them. Stunt number 2, Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving has to hold a large chunk of blame for the hole he put this team in this year. I'm all for his right not to be forced to do anything with his body he doesn't want, but the fact and reality is that because he was not vaccinated, he could only play half the games for the Nets, 29 games to be exact, and that put them in the 7th seed hole in the first place to face a defensive juggernaut like the Celtics. There's just always something with Kyrie. Last year he got injured against the Bucks, not his fault, and couldn't go the rest of the series, which put Harden and KD at a disadvantage last year. Now, this year, with his selfish actions, placed them in the position they were in, leading to them getting swept. Not to mention, he's probably the reason James Harden decided to leave this year. Harden saw the writing on the wall and bounced. There's always going to be an issue with Kyrie, as next to Ben Simmons, he's the biggest premadonna in the league, as everything has to fit his needs for him to play. Even when it does, you can't count on him not getting injured and being healthy enough to help you at the end of the year. In his career, 11 seasons, he's never played 82 games. 70 games just 3 times and 60 or more just 5 times. You simply can't count on Kyrie Irving. As good as he is, he'll always cost his team because of who he is, good or bad. Stunt number 3, Kevin Durant. And lastly, I don't care what the issue is, Kevin Durant is never supposed to be swept in an NBA playoffs for as good as he is. It's just never supposed to happen. The thing about it is how he was swept this year, as he never looked like the best player on the floor until Game 4, when it was already set in stone they weren't going to win this series. To me, Kevin Durant is no longer a top 5 player of his generation. He has 2 chips that were ghost-written even worse than LeBron's were, and continues to fail in the postseason outside the back-to-back Warriors championships, where, let's face it, he doesn't have without the team already built to succeed like Golden State was. KD has never been a winner with him as the guy on the team. And no, he wasn't the guy in Golden State. That was still Steph. The Cavaliers have come out and said their plan was to double Steph every time and make KD beat them. When the games mean nothing like last year with Harden and Irving out, he looked great, but you knew they weren't going far without those two, even if they beat the Bucks. That setting is made for KD. This year's playoffs, he looked shell-shocked, outmatched physically, and gassed. Even his leadership stinks to me. Vocally, he's never there to pick up his team and motivate them, like a Kawhi Leonard, where he's just too quiet to be the alpha leader you need. All series, it was just head down, taking the lashes the Celtics gave out with no response. He was horrible. 35% from the field coming into Game 4. 21 turnovers in 4 games, 5 rebounds, 5 assists average, and 0 blocks a game. He was completely outplayed by Tatum, and from here on can no longer be considered for best player in the NBA. He was supposed to lead them to a chip, but I don't see that happening going forward, as he'll be 34 in a few months, the end of his prime. All in all, the Nets were horrible across the board this year and deserve to be embarrassed like they were. KD and Kyrie have to figure out how to play outside ISO ball, and that means championing a coach that can help them do that. Steve Nash just isn't the guy. They also need a better supporting cast, especially on defense, so those two can focus on what they do best, score. I expect them to be better next year if Kyrie plays a full season and they make the necessary changes. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, the 2021-22 Brooklyn Nets growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth, and I'm out.
Once we finally got together, we had a mission and wanted to make the playoffs and see what kind of noise we can make. And we didn't make any noise, but we got to the playoff.